Okay, so this period we have set aside for a review of the instructions and then to take some questions. So the instructions at this point have been pretty simple and basic because we start off with a very simple and basic approach. We are trying to build up now the power of mindfulness. We call this the sati bala, the power of mindfulness, through taking a very simple, very fundamental, very basic object and training the mind to increase its mindfulness and clear comprehension, using that object as the basis. And the object that we are using is the in and out breathing, and we're taking a rather very narrow and specific point of focus, which is the area around the nostrils or slightly inside the nostrils or at the upper lip just beneath the nostrils, rather than a broader approach. And so the reason why I've chosen to take this more specific and narrow approach to developing the mindfulness of breathing is to strengthen the power of samadhi, that is the power of concentration. It doesn't mean that we're going to, in just one day, enter into deep states of absorption, of jhana or meditative absorption, but we want to gain the ability to focus and collect the mind on a rather narrow area. And then tomorrow we're going to start to expand the range of awareness until we encompass the entire body. And so we are choosing this specific area, the area around the nostrils, at the end of the nostrils, at the upper lip, in order to strengthen the concentration. And we're trying to do this by following each in-breath, each out-breath as continuously, as clearly, as consistently as possible. And there's a natural phenomena that takes place when we try to develop the power of concentration by choosing a small, narrow object, and that is that it seems unexpectedly thoughts come flowing into the mind. And this is just part of the natural process of developing meditation, that all of these thoughts we can imagine are sort of lying down like a, you could say maybe it's like a pile of garbage. And beneath that pile of garbage, at the very bottom, there's a very precious jewel. And to get at that very precious jewel, we have to push the garbage, all of the items, the garbage items away. And so as we're searching for the jewel, it seems that we're creating a mess, scattering all of the garbage around. But in fact, as we scatter the garbage, though we seem to be making a mess, we're getting closer to that jewel. As part of the process of seeking the jewel is to remove the garbage, and the garbage will come swelling up to the surface and scattered around. And so as we try to increase our powers of mindfulness, comprehension, clear comprehension, concentration, it's like stirring the collected heap of thought formations, and they start coming up to the surface so that it appears that we are creating more thoughts than we normally have. But that is not the case at all. But rather we are simply stirring up those thoughts because we are becoming more mindful and more aware of what is taking place within the mind. Okay, so that is the basic instruction that we're following, or that we're using, is to follow each in-breath, each out-breath as clearly and consistently, as continuously as possible, in this narrow region around the nostrils or at the nostrils or at the upper lip just below the nostrils. Okay, now we can see if anybody has any questions. And when asking questions, I have to lay down certain criteria for posing the question. First, the questions have to be practical, not theoretical questions. Not how do you relate mindfulness of breathing to the Abhidhamma scheme of citas and chaitasikas? No, that's forbidden, verboten, out of the question. And questions should be formulated clearly and simply, and try to keep them concise. Okay, so the way, okay, how do you ask a question? Okay, I think it will differ with different Zoom programs. Some will see on the bottom line, they'll see a little icon or a little label, raise hand, and maybe with the hand icon. In that case, you just go and you collect that icon. With other Zoom programs, versions of Zoom, like the one I have here, you'll see one of the items on the lower line is called reactions. And then if you click that, you see a number of options like applause, thumbs up, crying, a heart, bouquet of flowers, but one of them is called raise hands, and it shows a hand lifted like this. And so to ask the question, you would click the raise hand symbol. And then I will see the hand on the participant list. This is an email equation, I think you mean question, from somebody. Yeah, I guess that if somebody has trouble with that, okay, I see another way to ask the question is to use the chat function. But let me take the raised hands first. Okay, so let us see. The first one I see at the top of the list is Eva Chu. And when I call you, then you unmute your microphone and lower the hand. I might have to use the headphones. Okay, Eva Chu.
Bante, good afternoon.
Okay, good afternoon.
2 questions. The first one is that follow the breath in and out. Is it considered as a concentration practice?
Yes, it's a concentration practice.
Even though you it's not one pointed, you follow the in breath and out breath, but it's still because of the narrow range. So
yeah,
okay.
You're collecting the mind and focusing it on basically on one region, one area. So it's developing concentration. But we're not so much concerned here with developing concentration with the aim of attaining some kind of jhanic state, which is hardly possible in just a 4-day retreat, but more just increasing the power of concentration in order to be able to use that collected mind over the next few days to explore the different aspects of experience. And so there'll be more of a slant towards, so in the direction of insight or vipassana, starting tomorrow and then especially on the 3rd and 4th days.
Thank you. Second question is that why is chanting a part of the silent retreat? What is
Why
the
is
best?
chanting a part of the retreat?
Because it's a silent retreat. But chanting is not silence.
Well, when we say that it's a silent retreat, it means that people shouldn't be like just engaging in conversation, discussion, but chanting is a regular part of Buddha's practice. And so it's part of the monastic routine. And so we do it on the retreat. And also the chanting helps to call to mind, to inspire faith and devotion, since we're calling to mind the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And that sort of encourages us to continue diligently in our practice. And one can do that. In fact, one should be doing the chanting with mindfulness and with understanding.
Thank you, Bhante. That's it.
Okay. So now, and then after the question is answered, then you lower the hand. Okay, next is Raki, and you unmute.
Bhante, during the walking meditation, how do you keep your eyes or your gaze?
Oh, what do you do with the eyes?
Yes.
Generally, I suggest keeping the eyes lightly closed. So some people might prefer to keep the eyes downcast, a little bit open. If they prefer to do it in that way, they can do it in that way. Is that the question? Yeah, so you choose whichever you prefer. In my general directions, I say close the eyes lightly, but if you want to keep them a little bit open, you can do that. Okay, next is Samantha Jayatilaka. And you unmute the mic.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante. I would just want to clarify, Bhante. So in the Satipatthana Sutta, the emphasis is on everything is on mindfulness of the body, feelings, mind, etc. So when we are practicing the focus on the breath and narrowing it down, initially to improve the concentration, doing that. So I was just wondering now, which comes first, like, so initially we're mindful of the breath and then we increase the concentration. So in order to gain insight, what is important? Is it the concentration or mindfulness? Which is more important? Are they both equally important to gain the insights?
Yeah, one can say that one is more important than the other. But what I would say is that when one is doing the actual practice to develop insight, then one is moving away from concentration upon a particular very narrow point, a very narrow area, and sort of exploring the different facets of experience. So in that case, when one is doing insight, then the mind is not sort of locked into a narrow type of concentration, but the mind is collected and focused at exploring the changing aspects of experience. And that's what we'll see over the next few days. In today's sessions, we're working to strengthen simply the power of, or the twin powers of concentration, of mindfulness and concentration. Tomorrow, and then Sunday and Monday, then we'll be turning away from the narrow type of concentration to an expanded, exploratory type of concentration, in which maybe you could say mindfulness is playing a more prominent role.
So by just lastly, by increasing one's concentration, would eventually lead to an increase in the mindfulness as well, which is in the end.
Yeah, we can say that the two work together. That, well, mindfulness is sort of the starting point, because it's through developing mindfulness that concentration emerges. But when you have stronger concentration, then you can use the mindfulness, you pull away from that narrow concentration, but you then use the stronger mindfulness that's emerged in order to explore and investigate and then see sort of the changing nature of phenomena, which is the starting point of insight.
Right. Thank you, Bhante. That really clarified it for me. Thank you.
Okay. So again, that's right. Okay. Okay, next is Ashoka. And you unmute. Okay. Okay. Now
There you go. Sorry. Thank you, Bhante. It's just a quick question about the area where we're focusing on the breath. Is it all right to focus on one area, say like the cool air going in through the nostrils on the in-breath, and then maybe focus on the lip on the out-breath? Is it all right to focus on two different points, or should you stay with the same part?
Yeah, you don't intentionally shift the focus, but you just look for whatever area you can most clearly and distinctly pick up the felt sense of the breath moving in and out.
And just stay with that point, and stay with that one point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it might shift. Sometimes it might be more prominent at left nostril or more prominent at right nostril, more prominent a little bit inside the nostrils, a little bit more prominent sort of at the end of the nostrils. But you just pick up wherever you feel the air moving in and out, but you don't make an intentional effort. I'm going to put the attention on this nostril. Now I'm going to move it to that nostril, but just pick it up wherever you sense it most clearly and distinctly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, then Vanessa L. I think you're muted. You have to unmute. Okay.
Thank you, Bhante. I just wanted some clarification on, you mentioned when our focus is a little bit too narrow, we can focus on the body. Did you say something like that? Like if we're focusing on the breath, and then if it's too narrow, we can.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, now I understand what you mean.
I'm a little confused, I guess. How do I know if it's too narrow versus?
Okay, I understand what you mean. What I said is that sometimes one might feel, when it's trying to focus in this very small area, that the mind is getting sort of too tight and too tense. And so in that case, you want to sort of soften up the mind, relax it more. And the way to do that is you sort of drop that narrow focus, and you just then take the whole body in the sitting position. And then when you just attend to the whole body, you could feel the whole body moving with the in-breath and out-breath. You feel the chest expanding and contracting, the abdomen rising and falling. So you just bring that entire movement of the body with the in and out breathing. You just let the mind settle on that for some time till you feel the mind is more relaxed. Then you can go back to the area around the nostrils. And when you're focusing on the nostrils, the sort of the proper attitude is it's not like hammering a nail into the wall with that kind of forcing the mind there, but sort of letting the mind sort of step back in a kind of soft, observing way. And then just almost spontaneously, letting the felt sensation of the breath coming in and going out, let that felt sensation of the breath appear on its own to the mind, rather than pushing the mind, rather than like hammering the mind onto that point, because that will lead to this tension and tightness.
One more quick question is, if when we do walking meditation, is there something we should do with our hands?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. And it occurred to me after we started doing the walking, I should have mentioned, yeah, we don't have a fixed rule of what to do with the hands, but generally, I mean, I find when I'm doing the walking meditation that I put one hand over the other, I think, yeah, I put the left over the right and put them sort of on the belly in front. But some people, you just have to, experiment for yourself. Some people might prefer, I don't think this is so good, to put the hands, to join them behind the back. Maybe some people do it that way. I don't like, I wouldn't encourage that. It gives, a certain intensity to the mind. Whereas I find if I put the hands in front, the mind is softer and gentler. But other people might want to keep the hands just on the side. You could just experiment and see which place you prefer.
Thank you, so helpful.
If you like
Thank
doing
you.
it with the hands joined in the back, do it that way, but I don't do it that way myself.
Thank you so much. So helpful. Thank you.
Okay, let us see now. Doran? Yeah, you have to unmute.
Thank you, Bhante. This is a question about when you were talking about sati and sampajanya, and trying to see if I got clearly the difference between those two, and please tell me if I got it wrong.
Yeah.
Sati, mindfulness, is a faculty that when we say do mindfulness of breathing and thoughts come in, is that faculty that brings us back to the breath, to our focus. Whereas sampajanya, clear comprehension, is for some reason I'm blanking out. If you could clarify the difference, please, for us.
Okay.
Is the knowing that you're breathing in or out.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, sampajanya. Okay, first, mindfulness. Let's put it this way. Mindfulness is what enables one to keep the breath in mind. So mindfulness, the original meaning behind the word sati is remembering, remembrance. But in this case, it's not remembering a memory of something in the past, but it's remembering to keep the object in mind. In this case, it's keeping the breath in mind.
Remembering the focus.
Mindfulness. Excuse me?
Remembering the focus.
It's not so much to focus, but just simply to keep in mind, not forgetting the breath, not letting the mind drift away from the object, but remembering to keep the mind on the object.
Yeah.
And then sampajanya, what clear comprehension maybe at this point sounds a little too exalted. Let's say clearly knowing. So it's clearly knowing when one is breathing in, that one is breathing in, clearly knowing when one is breathing out, that one is breathing out. Okay, mindfulness keeps the in-breath in mind, keeps the out-breath in mind. Sampajanya knows that one is breathing in, knows that one is breathing out.
Thank you.
Okay, now you lower the hand. Okay, David. And you unmute.
Yes, Bhante. So after I've been breathing, or after I've been sitting for a short while, following my breath, the thoughts start to fall away. And then a very pleasant feeling arises. And I never seem to get beyond that. I just, and I wonder if, is that a defilement? Is that the sensual desire arising?
No, it's quite natural and good for a pleasant feeling to arise. That is probably, we could say that could be, it depends on the quality. It could be either the beginning of piti, is what we translate as joy, or sukha is pleasure, pleasant feeling. So those are positive signs, but just don't latch on, don't forget the breath and then start indulging in the pleasant feeling. But you just let the pleasant feeling come. It's sort of a sign of encouragement.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, now I'll take the question that comes through the chat box. Okay, would you explain a bit more about clear comprehension leading to the clear knowing of anicca, dukkha, anatta, please? I don't want to be blunt, but at this point, I would say that this is a theoretical question. When it's time to bring in observing anicca, then I'll bring it in. But now, to deal with that question would take us beyond the actual practice that we're engaged with today. You stick around till Sunday, and then Sunday we'll be working with anicca. Okay, so I don't see any additional questions. So we will be ready to start the meditation, but what I suggest we do before we actually take our seat, since we've been sitting and having a little discussion for about half an hour, we get up for 2 or 3 minutes, just do some stretching exercises in any way that you like, bending and stretching, and then I will hit or ring the gong to get us to sit, to return to our seats. Yeah, just 2 or 3 minutes. You don't have to follow me. You do whatever. If you like. Okay, we will be doing another session, sitting session of 40 minutes. I think everybody knows the instructions. I won't repeat the instructions now.